If you walk past a $100 bill lying on the sidewalk every single day, not because you couldn't see it, but because you'd trained yourself to look away, would you call that bad luck? Or would you call it what it really is, self-sabotage? Good morning, or good afternoon. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, I'm glad you're here. I want to talk with you today about something that affects almost everyone, yet few people ever recognize it. It's not complicated. It's not mysterious. But it's powerful, so powerful that it determines whether money flows easily into your life, or whether you spend your years pushing against an invisible wall, wondering why prosperity seems to favor everyone but you. The subject is this: most people are accidentally repelling the very wealth they say they want. Now, I don't mean they're unlucky. I don't mean the world is against them. I mean they have adopted, often without knowing it, a set of beliefs, habits, and reactions that act like a force field around money. And that force field pushes it away. Let me be clear. This isn't about blame. It's about awareness. Because once you see what you've been doing, you can stop doing it. And once you stop doing it, everything changes. Here's the truth most people never hear. Money doesn't care how hard you work. It doesn't care how deserving you are. Money moves toward those who are ready for it, those who expect it, respect it, and make room for it in their minds and in their lives. If you grew up hearing that money is the root of all evil, or that rich people are greedy, or that wanting more than you have is selfish, then congratulations. You've been programmed to repel wealth. Your subconscious mind, that great servant which never sleeps, is simply doing what it was told to: keep money at a distance. And so you work, you try, you hope. But underneath it all, there's a quiet voice saying, people like me don't get wealthy. That's for other people. That voice is the signal. And it's being broadcast every moment of every day. Let me tell you what I've observed over the years. There are two kinds of people in this world when it comes to money. The first kind sees someone else succeed and immediately thinks they got lucky. They had connections. They probably cheated. The second kind sees someone else succeed and thinks, if they can do it, so can I. What did they know that I don't know yet? The first person is repelling wealth. The second person is attracting it. Here's why. When you resent the success of others, when you criticize those who have more, when you justify your own lack by tearing down someone else's gain, you are teaching your mind that wealth is bad, that it corrupts, that it's something to be avoided. And your mind listens. It protects you from what you fear. But when you admire success, when you study it, when you celebrate the wins of others as proof of what's possible, you open a door. You signal to yourself, I belong in that conversation. I'm ready for that experience. And bit by bit, you become it. Now, let's get practical. If you want to stop repelling money, you must first stop thinking of it as the enemy. Money is nothing more than a tool, a measure of the value you've created, the problems you've solved, the lives you've touched. The man who resents his electric bill is repelling money. The man who pays it grateful because it means he has light, heat, and comfort is attracting it. The woman who buys something and immediately regrets it, who feels guilty for spending, who hides her purchases from herself, she's repelling money. The woman who spends wisely, enjoys what she buys, and feels good about her choices, she's attracting it. You see, wealth doesn't grow in the soil of guilt and fear. It grows in the soil of confidence and gratitude. Here's something else, and this may be the most important point of all. You cannot want money for the lack of it and expect to receive it. Let me say that again. You cannot focus on what you don't have, the bills, the debt, the fear, and attract more. Because your mind doesn't hear the word don't. It only hears the image. And if the image is scarcity, scarcity is what you'll create. You become what you think about most of the time. That's not a metaphor. It's a law. And it applies to money just as surely as it applies to anything else. If you wake up worried about money, if you go to bed anxious about money, if you spend your day complaining about money, then money is what you're thinking about, yes. But you're thinking about the absence of it. And absence is what you'll get more of. The wealthy think about money differently. They think about opportunity. They think about value. They think about what they're building, not what they're missing. And that shift, that simple, quiet shift in focus makes all the difference. So here's what I want you to do. Starting today, I want you to change the signal you're sending. First, stop criticizing wealth. Stop resenting people who have it. If you catch yourself thinking, must be nice, or easy for them, stop, replace it. Say instead, good for them, I'm next. Second, treat money with respect. Pay your bills on time and do it with gratitude. Don't crumple your cash. Don't leave coins scattered. Handle money as if it matters because it does, and your subconscious is always watching. Third, spend a few minutes each day thinking about wealth as if you already have it. Not in some fantasy way, but calmly, clearly. Picture yourself financially free. Feel it. Let it become familiar. Because the mind moves toward what is familiar, not what is foreign. Fourth, start giving, even if it's small. $1, $5, 10. Give it freely and feel good about it. Because the act of giving says to your deeper self, I have enough. I am abundant. And that signal attracts more. And fifth, do the work. None of this replaces effort. But effort without the right mindset is like rowing a boat with the anchor down. Fix the anchor, then row. Let me close with this. You are not a victim of the economy. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are not a victim of bad luck or bad timing. You are a thinking, choosing, creative human being, and you have the power, right now, to change the signal you're broadcasting to the world. If you've been repelling money, it's not because you're broken. It's because you didn't know, but now you do. And knowing changes everything. So decide right now, today, not someday, that you are done with scarcity. Decide that you are ready. Decide that you deserve it, that you'll work for it, and that you'll think about it in a new way. Write it down. Say it out loud. Make it real, because the moment you change your mind about money, money changes its mind about you. That's all for today. Now go and make it happen. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that the people who seem most desperate for money, the ones who need it most urgently, who worry about it constantly, who pray for it every night, are often the very ones who can't seem to get it, while others, who appear calm and confident about their finances, seem to attract opportunity after opportunity without even trying? It doesn't seem fair, does it? In fact, it seems backward. Shouldn't the universe or fate, or whatever you want to call it, reward those who need help the most? And yet, day after day, we see the opposite. Now, before we go any further, I want you to take a breath. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't a condemnation. It's not a judgment. It's simply an observation about how the mind works, and more importantly, how your mind works when it comes to money. Stay with me. Here's what's actually happening. When you need money, when you're desperate for it, when you're focused on the lack of it, when every waking moment is spent worrying about how you'll pay the next bill, you are broadcasting a very specific signal to the world. And that signal is scarcity. Your mind, which is the most powerful instrument you possess, doesn't distinguish between what you want and what you fear. It only knows what you focus on. And when you focus on needing money, you're focusing on not having it. You're picturing empty bank accounts. You're imagining rejection. You're feeling the anxiety of what happens if the money doesn't come. And so the mind, always faithful, always obedient, goes to work creating more of exactly that, not because it wants to punish you, but because it's doing what it was designed to do, make real whatever you consistently hold in your thoughts. Now contrast that with expectation. When you expect money not in some wishful, fingers-crossed way, but with calm certainty, you're operating from an entirely different place. You're not hoping it shows up. You're not begging for it. You're simply assuming, as naturally as you assume the sun will rise tomorrow, that money is on its way. That assumption changes everything. Think about it this way. When you expect a friend to arrive at your home, you don't sit by the window wringing your hands, wondering if they'll show up. You don't spend the hour beforehand imagining all the reasons they might not come. No, you tidy up the living room. You put on a pot of coffee. You glance at the clock occasionally, but you're relaxed. You're ready. Because you know they're coming. That's expectation. And money responds to that same energy. The person who expects money doesn't check their bank account every hour in a panic. They don't treat every bill like a catastrophe. They don't walk around with a dark cloud over their head, radiating fear and lack. Instead, they handle their finances calmly. They make plans. They look for opportunities. And when an opportunity presents itself, a new client, a side project, an investment, a promotion, they're not surprised. They were expecting it. And because they were expecting it, they were prepared for it. And because they were prepared for it, they recognized it. And because they recognized it, they acted on it. Here's the part that brings it all together. You don't have to be wealthy to expect wealth. You don't have to have money to think like someone who does. In fact, that's the only way anyone ever goes from having nothing to having something. They start expecting it before it arrives. Every successful person you admire made this shift at some point. They stopped needing and started expecting. They stopped begging and started preparing. They stopped focusing on the problem and started focusing on the solution. And bit by bit, dollar by dollar, the money came. Not because they were lucky, not because they were special, but because they changed the signal. So here's what I want you to understand. And I mean really take this in. Needing money pushes it away. Expecting money draws it near. The need is rooted in fear. The expectation is rooted in faith. And faith, calm, quiet, confident faith is the frequency on which prosperity operates. You've been tuned to the wrong station. But now you know. And now you can change the dial. Start today. Stop focusing on what you lack. Start expecting what's already on its way. Because it is. Your subconscious beliefs about wealth create an invisible barrier or an open door, an expanded reflection in the voice of Earl Nightingale. There's something you need to know about yourself. Right now, at this very moment, there's a part of your mind that's working against you. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but quietly, constantly, and with absolute precision. It's screening every opportunity that comes your way, every dollar that could flow toward you, every chance you have to improve your financial situation. And it's deciding, without your conscious awareness, whether to let it through or push it away. And here's what makes it frightening. You don't even know it's happening. You think you want more money. You say you want more money. But deep down, in that vast subconscious mind where all your childhood lessons and inherited beliefs live, there's a gatekeeper. And that gatekeeper has instructions. Instructions you didn't write. Instructions you may not even agree with. But instructions nonetheless. Now, I want you to stop for just a moment. Don't close yourself off to this. I know it sounds strange, maybe even unsettling to think that part of you is sabotaging your own success. But before you dismiss it, just give me a few minutes. Because understanding this one thing could change everything. Here's how it works. From the time you were a child, you heard messages about money. Maybe your parents fought about it. Maybe you heard that rich people are greedy, or that money doesn't grow on trees, or that you should be grateful for what you have and not ask for more. Maybe you learned that wanting wealth was shallow, or selfish, or somehow morally wrong. You didn't question these messages. You were young. You trusted the adults around you, so you absorbed them, and they sank down deep into your subconscious mind, where they became beliefs, not thoughts. And beliefs, my friend, are far more powerful than thoughts. Because thoughts come and go, but beliefs run the show. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue. It doesn't debate. It simply accepts what it's been told and works day and night to make it true. If you were taught that money is scarce, your subconscious will find ways to keep money scarce in your life. If you were taught that people like you don't get wealthy, your subconscious will make sure you don't. Not because it hates you, but because it's trying to protect you, to keep you aligned with what it believes is true. So when an opportunity comes along, a new job, a business idea, a chance to invest, a moment to negotiate a raise, your conscious mind might say, yes, I want this. But your subconscious whispers, this isn't for you, you'll fail, you'll lose it all, stay small, stay safe. And more often than not, that whisper wins. You hesitate, you doubt, you talk yourself out of it. And the opportunity passes by. Now here's the good news, and I want you to really hear this. Just because you have these beliefs doesn't mean you're stuck with them. Beliefs aren't facts. They're just ideas that got repeated enough times that they feel like facts. And anything that was learned can be unlearned. Anything that was programmed can be reprogrammed. The subconscious mind, for all its power, is remarkably simple. It doesn't care whether a belief is true or false, helpful or harmful. It only cares about repetition and emotion. So, if you've been repeating the wrong things, if you've been reinforcing beliefs that keep you poor, you can start repeating the right things. And with enough repetition, your subconscious will accept them just as readily as it accepted the old ones. Here's what that looks like in practice. Every day you feed your mind. You feed it with what you read, what you watch, who you talk to, and most importantly, what you say to yourself. If you say, I can't afford it, your subconscious hears that and builds a life around it. But if you start saying, how can I afford it? Or money comes to me easily, or I am worthy of wealth, and you say it with feeling, with conviction, as if it's already true, your subconscious begins to shift, slowly at first, then faster, and eventually the barrier starts to crack, and what was once blocked begins to flow. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Stop assuming your beliefs about money are correct just because you've had them for a long time. Question them. Look at them honestly. Ask yourself, is this belief helping me or is it holding me back? And if it's holding you back, replace it. Not someday. Today, write down a new belief. Say it out loud. Say it every morning. Say it until it feels natural. Say it until your subconscious stops resisting and starts believing. Because the moment it believes, the door opens. And everything you've been pushing against suddenly, it gives way. That's when your life changes. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Let me tell you something that might be hard to hear. Every time you look at a price tag and wince. Every time you say, I can't afford that. Without even thinking. Every time you see someone else succeed and your first thought is, there's not enough for me now. You're practicing scarcity. And the more you practice it, the better you get at it. Until one day you're a master at it. You can spot lack anywhere. You can find reasons why something won't work before you even try. You can calculate loss before you've taken a single risk. And all the while, you wonder why prosperity keeps its distance. But here's the thing I need you to understand before we go any further. This isn't your fault. I'm not blaming you. I'm not saying you chose this on purpose. Scarcity thinking isn't something you woke up one day and decided to adopt. It's something you learned, something you picked up along the way, probably from people who learned it from people before them. So take a breath. Let that settle. Because what I'm about to show you isn't a lecture, it's a door. Now let's talk about what's really happening. Scarcity thinking is nothing more than a habit. A mental habit, just like biting your nails or checking your phone first thing in the morning. You've done it so many times, in so many situations, that it's become automatic. You don't even question it anymore. It just is. When you see a bill, you immediately feel tension. When you think about the future, you immediately imagine struggle. When someone mentions money, your stomach tightens. That's the habit running. And here's what makes habits so powerful. They don't require your permission. They just fire, and over again, day after day, until the groove is so deep, you can't remember what it was like to think any other way. But here's the part most people never realize. Habits aren't permanent. They feel permanent. They feel like who you are. But they're not. They're just patterns. And any pattern can be interrupted. Any pattern can be replaced. You see, your brain doesn't care whether a habit helps you or hurts you. It just cares about efficiency. It's trying to save energy. So whatever you do most often, whatever thought you think most consistently, that's what gets reinforced. That's what becomes the default. If you've been thinking in terms of scarcity for years, then yes, that's your default right now. But it doesn't have to stay that way. Let me give you an example. There was a time when you didn't know how to tie your shoes. It was clumsy. It was frustrating. You had to think about every loop, every pull. But you kept doing it. One day, without even noticing, it became automatic. You stopped thinking about it. Your hands just knew. That's how all habits form, through repetition. Now, imagine if you started practicing abundance the same way. What if, every time you caught yourself thinking, I can't afford it, you stopped and said instead, not yet, but I'm working toward it? What if, every time you felt jealous of someone else's success, you paused and said, good for them, that means it's possible? At first, it would feel awkward, forced, like trying to write with your opposite hand. But if you kept doing it, if you made it a practice, a daily discipline, it would start to feel natural. And eventually, it would become automatic. That's when everything changes. Because once abundance becomes your default, you stop blocking the very thing you're trying to attract. Here's what I want you to see. You're not broken. You're not cursed. You're not doomed to struggle forever. You've just been practicing the wrong thing. And the beautiful truth about the human mind is this: you can always practice something new. Right now, in this moment, you have the power to choose a different thought. And then tomorrow, you can choose it again. And the day after that. And the day after that. And I promise you, if you're consistent, if you're deliberate, if you treat this like the discipline it is, the habit will shift. The groove will change. And where there was once scarcity, there will be space for something else, something better. So starting today, I want you to catch yourself. Every time that old thought creeps in, the one that says there's not enough, that you're not enough, that it's too late or too hard, I want you to stop. Don't judge it. Don't fight it. Just notice it, and then gently replace it. Say something true, something that opens a door instead of closing one, something that assumes the best instead of the worst. Do that enough times, and the habit breaks. Do it long enough, and a new habit forms. And when that happens, you won't just think differently about money. You'll experience it differently. Because the world you see outside is always a reflection of the world you've built inside. Change the inside, and the outside follows. That's not magic. That's just how it works. I want you to think about something for a moment. When you see someone driving a beautiful car, living in a stunning home, or celebrating a major financial win, what's your first reaction? Be honest. Not what you think you should feel, but what you actually feel. Do you smile and think, that's wonderful? Or do you feel a tightness in your chest? A little voice that says, must be nice, or they probably don't deserve it, or why them and not me? Because if it's the latter, if there's even a trace of bitterness, envy, or resentment when you see someone else's success, then you need to understand something crucial. You are actively pushing wealth away from yourself. Not metaphorically, actually. And the terrible irony is this: the very thing you're resenting is the thing you say you want most. Now, before you get defensive or discouraged, let me say this clearly. I'm not judging you. I'm not saying you're a bad person. Envy is human. It's natural. Most people feel it at some point. But feeling it and feeding it are two different things. And if you've been feeding it, if you've been letting it shape how you see the world, we need to address it, because it's costing you everything. So stay with me here. This matters more than you know. Here's what's actually going on. When you resent someone else's wealth, you're not just having a passing emotion. You're making a statement to your subconscious mind. You're saying, loud and clear, wealth is bad. People who have it are wrong. Success means something negative. And your subconscious, which is always listening, always learning, takes that message and files it away. And then it does what it always does: it protects you from what you've labeled as dangerous. So even when an opportunity comes to make more money, to take a risk, to step into a bigger version of your life, something inside you resists, because you've trained yourself to associate wealth with negative qualities: greed, arrogance, unfairness, corruption. And since you're a good person, since you don't want to be greedy or arrogant, you unconsciously keep yourself small. You turn down opportunities. You undercharge for your services. You don't negotiate. You stay in jobs that underpay you. All because, deep down, you've decided that having more would make you one of them. The people you resent. You see the trap, don't you? You can't become what you despise. You can't attract what you criticize. It's psychologically impossible. Now here's the part that changes everything. Wealth isn't good or bad. It's neutral. It's a tool, a resource. Money simply amplifies who you already are. If you're generous, it makes you more generous. If you're cruel, it makes you more cruel. But the money itself, it has no morality. The person driving that expensive car might be a jerk, or they might be funding scholarships for kids who can't afford college. You don't know who, and more importantly, it doesn't matter. Because their character, whatever it is, has nothing to do with whether you can build wealth for yourself. But when you judge them, when you assume the worst, when you make their success mean something negative about you or the world, you create a barrier, a mental block, a wall between you and the very abundance you're working so hard to achieve. Here's the truth: every time you celebrate someone else's win, you're training your mind to recognize wealth as something good, something possible, something you can have too. And every time you resent it, you're reinforcing the belief that wealth is the enemy. So let me ask you to do something difficult. The next time you see someone succeeding, really succeeding, in a way that might normally trigger that little pang of jealousy, I want you to stop. Take a breath. And instead of going to that dark place, I want you to say sincerely, good for them. Say it out loud if you can. Mean it, and then take it one step further. Say, if they can do it, so can I, not in a competitive way, not in a bitter way, but in a way that opens the door. A way that says, this is possible, this is real, and I'm next. Do that enough times, and something inside you shifts. The resentment fades. The envy loses its grip, and in its place something better emerges: inspiration, possibility, belief. You see, The people who build real wealth don't waste energy resenting others. They study them. They learn from them. They see success as evidence of what's achievable, not as proof of what's been taken from them. And that perspective, that simple shift in how you view other people's wins, unlocks everything. Because when you stop seeing wealth as the enemy, you stop running from it. And when you stop running from it, you start moving toward it. Not with desperation, not with envy, but with confidence, with clarity, with the quiet knowledge that there's enough for everyone, including you. That's when the door opens. That's when things start to change. So stop resenting, start celebrating, and watch what happens. Let me ask you something directly. Have you ever downplayed your ambitions? Told people you don't really care about money when, in truth, you think about it constantly? Have you ever felt guilty for wanting more, for wanting a nicer home, a better car, financial freedom, the ability to travel, to give, to live without that gnawing anxiety about bills? Have you ever caught yourself saying things like, I don't need to be rich or anything, or money isn't everything, as if wanting it somehow makes you shallow or selfish or less spiritual? Because if you have, then you're doing something that almost everyone does, something that seems harmless, even humble. But in reality, it's one of the most destructive things you can do to your financial future. You're apologizing for wanting wealth. And every time you apologize for it, you push it further away. Now, I need you to hear me clearly on this. I'm not telling you to become obsessed with money. I'm not telling you to worship it or make it the center of your life. But I am telling you this: if you want wealth, you cannot be ashamed of wanting it. You cannot shrink from it. You cannot keep it at arm's length while simultaneously hoping it comes to you. So just for a moment, let go of whatever judgment you're holding. Let go of the voices in your head telling you that wanting more is wrong. Because what I'm about to tell you could change everything. Here's the reality. Money is nothing more than stored value. It represents the problems you've solved, the lives you've improved, the work you've done. When you apologize for wanting it, you're essentially apologizing for wanting to create value, for wanting to contribute, for wanting to be compensated fairly for your time, energy, and expertise. And when you do that, when you make yourself small, when you downplay your ambitions, when you hide your desire for financial success behind false modesty, you send a very specific message to the world and to yourself. You say, I'm not worthy of abundance, and the world, which always reflects back what you believe about yourself, responds accordingly. Opportunities pass you by. People undervalue your work. You settle for less because asking for more feels wrong. You charge too little. You accept too little. You expect too little. Not because you're incapable of more, but because somewhere along the way you learned that wanting wealth was something to be ashamed of. Maybe it was a parent who said, money doesn't grow on trees. Maybe it was a teacher who told you that rich people are selfish. Maybe it was a culture or a religion that taught you that poverty is noble and prosperity is corrupt. Whatever the source, the message took root. And now, years later, it's still running your life, still keeping you stuck. It's still making you apologize for the very thing that could set you free. But here's what you need to understand, and I mean really take this in. There is nothing wrong with wanting wealth. Nothing. In fact, wanting wealth is one of the most natural, healthy, productive desires a human being can have, because wealth gives you options. It gives you freedom. It allows you to take care of yourself and the people you love. It lets you contribute in bigger ways, give in bigger ways, live in bigger ways. The wealthiest people I've ever known aren't the greediest. They're often the most generous. Because when you have more, you can do more. You can help more. You can create more. But none of that is possible if you're still apologizing for wanting it in the first place. Think about it this way. If you went to a restaurant and ordered a meal, would you apologize to the waiter for being hungry? Of course not. That would be absurd. Hunger is natural. It's your body telling you it needs fuel. Wanting wealth is no different. It's your soul telling you it's ready to grow, to expand, to contribute at a higher level. And when you stop apologizing for that, when you own it, when you say clearly and confidently, yes, I want financial success, and there's nothing wrong with that, something shifts. The guilt lifts, the shame dissolves, and in its place, clarity emerges. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Stop hiding your ambition. Stop pretending you don't care about money when you do. Stop shrinking to make other people comfortable. Instead, decide right now, today, that you are done apologizing. Decide that wanting wealth is not only acceptable, it's commendable. Because it means you're willing to work, to grow, to serve at a level that creates real value in the world. Say it out loud if you need to. Write it down. Make it real. I want wealth. I deserve wealth. And I will no longer apologize for pursuing it. That single shift, that one moment of claiming what you want without shame, is where everything begins. Because the moment you stop apologizing, you stop hiding. And the moment you stop hiding, you start becoming. And becoming is where wealth lives. Not in the apology, not in the shrinking, but in the bold, unapologetic declaration that you are ready, you are worthy, and you are going after it. That's when the door opens. That's when your life changes.